Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the American Sports Connection. I'm your host, the one and only Joey Railroads. I have a very special guest on the line with me, so let's not keep him waiting. I have with me the reigning, defending, record shattering House of Glory world champion, but that's not all. It was so nice, he decided to do it twice. The House of Glory Crown Jewel champion, the leader of the House of Gangone, and he's a wrestling god, Mr. Anthony Gangone. Anthony, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic, and thank you for that introduction. It was very exhilarating.
I thought you might enjoy that. Now,
How's it?
what I wanted to start off here with, Anthony, was what are your first memories of pro wrestling?
Well, I started watching wrestling at the age of, I believe, around 4 or 5. So it was right before the Attitude Era kind of just went into full swing. And I guess one of the earliest memories I had was I believe it was Razor Ramon against Shawn Michaels, the second ladder match. And I guess 1996 is really what I remember the most as far as my earliest memories, and being a fan of the Believe It or Not, the Ultimate Warrior, and at that time his second run, which was not as impressive as his first run. But as a kid, all those colors and the warrior paint kind of captured me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I when I grew up, I was a Hogan mark because they had WrestleMania 5 in our my backyard in Atlantic City, and my dad tried to get tickets, and that didn't work out. And then I actually got to see SummerSlam '90 at the old Spectrum when Warrior fought Rick Rude in a cage.
Hmm.
So that was always kind of cool. That what hooked me was, and I don't know if you've ever seen it when Earthquake attacked Hulk Hogan on, I think it was the Brother Love show, and they like carted him out on a stretcher, and they made it act like he was gonna retire, and
Yes, yes, I have seen that.
yeah, that was like the thing that I'm like, I have to watch this. I was probably like 7 years old at the time, and I
Hmm.
sent like Hulk Hogan a get well card because you could send them to this like PO box, and I actually got a card back with like his autograph like stamped on it.
Oh wow.
So I like kept that. I have it somewhere still.
Oh, that's nice.
But was there one like specific like person you followed or like a moment that you remember growing up that was like, this is what I want to watch?
One specific moment, probably not. I do remember the Brett Steve Austin match from WrestleMania 13, where Austin was bleeding and passed out. That kind of sticks out to me as a kid. Uh, a lot of Mankind and Undertaker stuff from '96. That stuck out a lot to me as a kid, but nothing necessarily specific that sticks out.
Okay. When did you decide you were gonna do this? Like that this is what you wanted to be?
Well, as a kid, I felt like I always knew I was going to do this, and there really wasn't any other option in my head. And I actually, one of my graduations, I didn't even go to because I was so interested in becoming a wrestler. I kind of had an argument with the people that were setting it up, and I just didn't show up. So,
That's
uh,
awesome.
yeah, so I started to look at schools around the age of 18, and financially didn't work out for myself. And then a year later, I was able to crunch the numbers, and at the age of 19, that's when I started.
Okay, that's a good segue because I was going to ask you to tell me about your training experience up with Amazing Red because that's pretty cool that you got to be trained under a guy that's been in one of the two big companies right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think Red gets enough credit for how great of a wrestling mind he is because most people just think of him as an X Division guy and just, I guess, a Spot Fest guy or whatever. But he's extremely intelligent. He's been on WWE's radar. He was supposed to be on the Cruiserweight Classic, and I'll never take away what he has given to professional wrestling. I don't always agree with his antics on certain aspects, but that's a story for another time. But like I said, the training was grueling, especially at the beginning. And he's friends with a lot of people, so he's been able to bring people in. So I've trained with Low Key and Samoa Joe and Homicide and Eddie Kingston and just a plethora of people. And then obviously all the wrestlers that I faced at House of Glory, like the Johnny Garganos and the Cody Rhodes and all these other guys.
Right. How did that shape you into like the performer you're becoming now? Under his training.
Well, I think for me, and I guess some people might disagree with this, but this is the way I see myself. I grew up on loving the like old school WWE. Like I would always go back to like watch WrestleMania 4 and all these other older WrestleManias, and that kind of shaped me for how I kind of perceive wrestling. But I also in high school I was a huge Ring of Honor fan, so guys like Bryan Danielson or Daniel Bryan, Austin Aries, Nigel McGuinness, Brent Albright, all these guys were like guys I looked up to and like spent my entire teen years watching, and that kind of shaped me as an in ring performer. So I kind of like to think I'm a old school guy with a new school flavor.
I like that.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to ask you because I had a thought on this one. Did you have any influences? The reason I asked this, when I see you wear your gear, I always think of the Outsiders or the old like Ode to Scott Hall with the NWO trunks.
Yeah. Well, a big influence on me nowadays is like Randy Savage and uh, Razor Ramon is more of the character that I enjoy, just like the cool kind of bad guy or whatever. Um, and then like as far as in ring stuff, it's just a lot of like Daniel Bryan stuff, or I guess at the time Bryan Danielson, more of his kind of style of Ring of Honor. Some MMA influence, some submission influence. I really feel like I'm more of a hybrid wrestler. I'm not necessarily, you can deem me as a particular style of wrestler, whether that be high flyer or strike base. I'm pretty, what I like to think, decent at everything. But like, as far as my look, especially currently, a lot of movie stuff, a lot of like Savage stuff, but stuff like that.
Right, that's what I was just going to ask you about. How how you came about with the idea of doing the House of Gangone and using the Guy Fawkes mask, which I love, by the way.
Well, in 2015, I had this idea, and I thought, well, I always kind of had the idea since kind of checking out the Alan Moore graphic novel and then the V for Vendetta movie itself. And I kind of always had it in the back of my head, like this kind of gimmick. And then I thought, well, why don't I take that mask and kind of make it my own? So I put a beard on it, kind of make it more like my mask. So I'm kind of taking that idea and forming it into my own. And then there's a group called the Crusade for Change at the time that was in Beyond Wrestling. So I messaged all of them and asked if I could do this, and they all gave me their approval. Although it took Darius Carter a few months to give me his approval, and that somehow morphed into me joining them in Beyond Wrestling, and I guess I'm the only member ever in the Beyond Wrestling history books to be undefeated on their main card. So we never lost. I think we were like 12-0, I believe. So we never actually lost, but that's kind of how the idea came about from that graphic novel and that movie, and now I've kind of turned it into my own thing and have followers, and I've never really lied to them, I guess, because they want to be on shows and they weren't on shows, and now they're on shows and like they're defeating former champions. So I guess the House of Gangone is really what I wished the Crusade was in a lot of ways, and just doing my own thing when it comes to that.
Yeah, like your own kind of twist on it.
Yeah.
Because I personally really enjoy it. I think it's kind of, I guess you would say, like out of the box thinking.
Yeah. Well,
you know,
I mean,
because there's a lot of, and this isn't disrespect to other wrestlers, or it's so in wrestling there's just a lot of vanilla type stuff, you know.
yeah, no, I get that. I mean, in a lot of ways, I struggle with wrestling because it always seems like it has to be so dumbed down as far as the character and storyline aspect. Instead of making it, in my opinion, I feel like it should be more in a cinematic kind of way, that not everything has to be explained right there. I remember this one time these fans were complaining because I shook someone's hand after a match, and they were saying like, oh, well, I guess, you know, that took away from the match or whatever, but that particular handshake was actually going to tell a lot later down the line, and I just wish that people gave it just a little bit more time and understood that this is supposed to be like a movie, and just take a little bit of time to see how the story unfolds.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean, and sometimes, like you just said, the story isn't always completely told in the sense of thrown in your face, where it's like you kind of have to leave it up to the person to kind of get their own personal feeling. Well, maybe it's this, or maybe it means that, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, no, but I agree with your sense. I think that's a great idea to make it more of a cinematic kind of way, as opposed to, I guess, more cookie cutter, you would say.
Yeah, it's just, I feel like we've gone past the kind of like oversimplified, almost stereotype characters.
Yes.
Even though it's not, I wouldn't say it's what it used to be, as far as like you don't have like Akeem or like Slick walking around anymore necessarily, but still in that kind of vein. And I feel like human beings, if you know, everyone has been through life, a bit more complex than just being a good or a bad guy, even though that's tradition and that's where everything should grow from. But as far as like what a character would do in certain situations, I don't think it should be necessarily so black and white.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with that, where it's more kind of like a gray area.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to get your thoughts, because it's probably been in the last year or so. House of Glory and CZW's kind of had this somewhat of a working relationship, and you've come down a few times. What has been your feelings on working at the CZW Dojo, that's kind of, with their Dojo Wars, has gotten a little more pub over the last year or so?
Well, I think it's a good place for almost like a feeder system for CZW. and kind of give those guys that maybe they were looking at for the main roster or main roster debut at some point, or those guys that are from the CZW school themselves, and put them in front of a small audience. And I think that experience definitely helps people out. I've enjoyed most of my time there, I believe. I mean, I've been there, I believe, 3 times. The first time I went, I faced Frankie Picard, and we had a pretty good little main event match. And then I came back 2 other times and kind of tried to stomp my way to victories. But I enjoyed my time there thus far.
Right, because I've had a lot of performers tell me they enjoy coming not only because of what you just said, but that it's like a more intimate kind of setting.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, all the times that I've been there, it wasn't, probably less than 50 people or whatever on a Wednesday night. But I don't really enjoy wrestling at this point necessarily for like large crowds. Even though I've been in front of like 2,000 people thus far, but I kind of like the in-ring action and what I can do and how my character and wrestling ability would go against someone that has either a different style, similar style, whatever the case may be.
Right, I got you. Now, for those that don't know this, you just won this past weekend the House of Glory Crown Jewel championship against Leo Rush, who's probably one of the hottest indie names at the time, right now. Tell me about that. What was that like, becoming the first dual champion in House of Glory and Triple Crown winner in House of Glory?
Well, I think one at Leo Rush. I faced him before about a year and a half ago, and he's like almost a completely different wrestler. He is probably the fastest person I've ever been in the ring with. It's kind of hard to keep up with him sometimes, but I thought we had a pretty good little match. And as far as being the first ever dual champion, it's honestly it's an honor in a lot of ways. I can't say that I didn't kind of see it coming at some point. I mean, in my opinion, I made that title with 19 title defenses, and I faced guys. A lot of those came from outside House of Glory. So I faced guys like Sanjay Dutt and Johnny Gargano and T.J. Perkins and all these guys. And 19 title defenses is a pretty big deal, I think, at this point in indie wrestling, especially since House of Glory runs roughly 6 to 7 times a year. But I kind of try to enjoy that moment for a few seconds, kind of breathe it in, because I feel like, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow, but I kind of wanted to breathe that moment in. And being the first ever Triple Crown champion in House of Glory, that's a big deal to me, because I told myself when I first started I was going to be the first quote-unquote student to be world champion. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Smiley was the first one, but I did become the first Triple Crown champion. So that's I think that's pretty satisfying still.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny you mentioned about all your title defenses, and that's. I've told other people this when I found out, because most people don't know this. I think it's in it's either September or October. I'll have to look it up. That you'll be world champion for one calendar year, one full calendar year. And I was like, people don't understand how hard that is to do in independent wrestling today.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully I get to that point, because we do have a big show in August, what people consider our like WrestleMania show, whatever you want to call it. So hopefully I can get past that. I already am the longest reigning world champion in House of Glory history. But I would love to make that 1 year and have that over everybody's head.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't blame you in any way. Now, is there anyone? I guess you would kind of say a dream match, but in the sense of that you haven't worked with yet, that you're like keeping your eye on, like, yeah, I want to work with that guy.
Um, Honestly, I can't really think of anyone right now on the independent level um, that I really would like to get in there with. I guess someone like Omega or Marty Scurll or two guys. But I feel like I pretty much have faced everyone um, at some point that's on the independents. Everyone else, I guess, are either retired or in the WWE at this point. So I really don't have anyone per se that I can think of.
That would be fun to watch you and Kenny Omega, since he's, I'm assuming, going to be coming more to the States now.
That's what I hear. He's got his U.S. visa now, so
That would be fun to watch. What can fans expect from you in the future?
well, hopefully, in the near future, I'll be in more places, more across the United States, and maybe overseas at some point in the next year. Those are two kind of goals that I'm looking at. You know, somewhere with more quote unquote exposure would definitely be something I'm looking at this point. So, just things like that.
I gotcha. Now, if anybody wants to contact you or get a hold of you on social media, how do they reach you?
You can find me on Facebook um, under Anthony Gangone, and you can message me there, I guess, for any booking stuff or whatever. And I also have a Twitter at House of Gangone, and I have an email at Anthony Cezzon at Gmail. That's for booking stuff. So any of those places, I might, from what I understand, I might get an Instagram or something at some point. But as of right now, just Twitter and Facebook.
I'm the same way. I'm just Twitter and Facebook. The too much, like the Instagram and all.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of all this stuff, but I guess it's a necessary evil.
Yeah. I'm not a big like techie person. I just kind of know enough to get by with what I got to do.
Hmm.
But I wanted to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on and have a chat with me.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, everyone. We're going to get out of here for today. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, give it a thumbs up, all that good stuff. And we'll see you back next time. Have a good day, everybody.